If you commute anywhere on the East Coast, or honestly, if you just rely on the American economy functioning properly, this is a crisis you absolutely need to know about. Right now, there is a literal ticking clock under the Hudson River. We're talking about the historic North River tunnels. They're the silent, invisible workhorses of the Northeast Corridor. But they are doomed. Let's unpack exactly how we got here, the invisible enemy eating away at the walls, and this incredibly stressful race against time to save them. Think about this. There is exactly one single rail connection between Manhattan and the rest of the United States. Just one. I mean, think about the sheer scale of the American economy, the millions of commuters, the massive volume of interstate commerce. All of that relies on this incredibly vital, yet impossibly fragile bottleneck. It is the most trafficked rail tunnel in North America, and there is literally no backup plan. If this one connection goes down, the ripple effects across the whole country would be immediate and, frankly, catastrophic. Which brings us to a rather chilling assessment. About 10 years ago, experts looked at this critical piece of infrastructure and made a firm determination. And they didn't use a bunch of confusing academic jargon either. They simply said these tunnels only had about 20 years left before they went completely kaput. It's kind of a funny word for a profoundly terrifying situation, right? The clock officially started ticking a decade ago. So what exactly is happening deep underground to put a strict expiration date on this vital national artery? Part 1. Hurricane Sandy's toxic legacy, the invisible enemy destroying our infrastructure. The real nightmare actually started back in 2012, during Hurricane Sandy. As the storm surged, an incredibly brutal reality played out. To prevent the heart of Midtown Manhattan from just being completely destroyed by floodwaters, the rail yards effectively had to act as a giant drain. They funneled an unimaginable 13 million gallons of highly corrosive seawater directly into the North River tunnels. Just picture that volume for a second. Millions and millions of gallons of ocean water completely submerging the electrical and structural lifelines of America's busiest transit hub. But the danger definitely didn't end when the storm passed. Authorities worked tirelessly, and yeah, they successfully pumped the water out, but there was a critical flaw. The water left behind a highly toxic residue of chlorides and sulfates. Experts actually call this a salt symphony. Whenever those left-behind sulfates come into contact with natural groundwater, they expand, and that expansion causes the very concrete structure of the tunnel to crack, splinter, and literally fall apart from the inside out. So we aren't dealing with a giant, visible crack in the wall that you can just easily patch up with some cement. No, we are dealing with microscopic chemical monsters. These sulfates have a super nasty habit of expanding the second they hit groundwater. And because they're embedded deep inside the porous concrete, every single time it rains or the groundwater shifts even a little bit, these sulfates swell up. They're shattering the tunnel's structural integrity molecule by molecule in this slow, relentless dissolution. Part 2. Smashing icicles with trains, the absurd reality of tunnel maintenance. This hidden decay forces us into a totally bizarre present-day reality. It's a massive irony, really. On one hand, you have New York City, right? The financial capital of the United States, the wealthiest city in the world, home to bleeding-edge tech. But just below the surface, we are relying on shockingly primitive, almost 19th century survival tactics just to keep this critical infrastructure running from one day to the next. I mean, this is an ancient history. This is the bizarre maintenance routine happening right now. Every single night, a dedicated 30-person crew goes down into the tunnels just to see if the walls will survive another 24 hours. They're manually checking for the latest concrete blowouts. And it gets wilder because the compromised walls let in freezing groundwater during the winter. Amtrak literally has to send empty trains down the tracks at high speeds to act as battering rams. They are using million-dollar train cars to physically smash giant icicles from the ceiling before they can grow long enough to short-circuit the whole electrical system. That is how America's premier rail corridor is surviving right now. Part 3, the $16 billion race, the Gateway Program solution. So our only real hope rests on a truly staggering figure, $16 billion. That's the price tag for what's known as the Gateway Program. And the plan isn't just to slap more bandages on rotting walls. It's a massive undertaking to dig a completely new 9-mile tunnel right alongside the old ones. See, you can't fix a tunnel while hundreds of trains are actively running through it. This project would finally allow Amtrak to reroute traffic, shut the old tunnels down entirely, and physically scrub out those decades-old salt deposits. But here is where the math gets incredibly stressful. Let's trace this timeline. Back in 2012, Sandy flooded the tunnels. Today, well over a decade later, Those salt deposits are still down there actively rotting the concrete. Now, the new Gateway Tunnel, our lifeline, is scheduled to open in 2035. But remember those experts? They projected the old tunnels will become completely unusable by 2036. The sheer terror here is that the new tunnel opens with exactly a 1-year margin of error before the old ones fail completely. 1 year. We are attempting one of the most complex engineering feats in modern American history, all while constantly battling funding disputes and red tape, where bureaucracy loves to win. Knowing that we have a razor-thin 1-year margin of error to save America's most trafficked rail corridor, we are left with a massive looming question. Will the math hold up? Will we finish the new tunnel in time, or are we already out of time for the North River tunnels? It's a literal race against chemistry, physics, and a ticking clock. The stakes could not be higher for the nation, so keep that in mind next time you ride the rails.